You are good enough to be anything you wanna be.
Hello friends, Laura here. Thank you for coming on to this video and for the beautiful feedback over the last part. I'll call it part 1 because this is part 2. As you can also see, change of clothes, nini, like fresh new day, fresh new conversations. And we talked about studying a master's, the whole idea behind it, healthy motivations behind it, studying a master's abroad, and now the particulars of studying a master's in the UK. And we're going niching down slowly. I cannot wait to get to the part where we talk about more fun things, like what the preparation method was like, what the process was like, what I went through, because it was dramatic. I think it was dramatic, but like in a really fun way. But for now, we have a lot of serious conversations to have, very serious ones about the entire process that are so important. And I remember when I first came, when I announced my coming and I came and everything, I did get like people now sending in messages like, I want to do that as well, how do I do it? And I remember how I used to struggle because I'm like, there's so much to say, I don't even know where to begin. So I'm just so happy to be doing this. It's really giving me so much joy. It's a labor of love. It's making me happy. And so to see your feedback as well, to see you engaging with it is also really, I'm glad. I'm just happy. And feel free to ask questions as always. So today we are talking about some of the important requirements. Remember, I stated various documents that you need for your application process. And today now we're going to break down a few of them as to how exactly to get them, just any important detail that you need to know about them, because it's not as easy as saying you need this, you need that, you need this, you need that. Some of these things you've never had to think about where to get them or how to do it. And if there's something that I think is so important to do that I really appreciate about life, I really appreciate people who show you things extensively without the assumption that, gosh, that's obvious, how do you not know? That's personally what I want to do, because I know how much I appreciate it when people do that for me. Just show me something to the very end, and I'm really excited to be doing that. So today, let's get right into it. Number 1, we talked about academic transcripts and certificates. Now, this is fairly easy because it's not something you need to apply for. It's not something you need to like move mountains to get. As long as you have been through a particular school and you have graduated, sorry, I keep my notes somewhere here just so I don't forget anything. As long as you have been through a particular school and you have graduated from that school, they should give you a certificate and your transcripts of all the 3-4 years, whatever number of years you have been in that school. So for undergrad, this will be your if you're applying for an undergrad course, this will be your KCSE certificate and your KCSE transcripts. But if you're applying for a postgraduate degree, that will be your university certificate and your university transcripts. So you need those. Very important. Now, most of the times, sorry, I got cut off. My roommate came to say hi. So I hope to not repeat myself too much, but I was just talking about the certificates. You'll get them from your school once you're done. They usually just tell you after graduation, they tell you when you should pick them up, and then you go pick them up. It's ideal to pick any documents from anywhere as soon as you can, so that because if you wait it out too long, you're likely to not pick them, and then you end up like being in a rush when you need them. So that's just like a bonus, like a pro adulting tip. Always pick your documents and have one major file for all your documents, just having them together in one place so that you can access them easily anytime you need them. So when it comes to this, I had mentioned something in the earlier video about having a certified copy of the certified true copy of the documents. This is just generally like a thing I learned, and I feel like I learned it through this visa process, but I'm not too sure where it was necessary. Maybe it was when I was renewing my passport or something. But it's good practice to get, oh, my battery is running low. Battery is charged, and can you imagine, I have taken a nap, I have eaten tacos. I was saying that you need to get true copies of your original. So they call it a certified copy of the original. It's good practice. I remember using it. I don't remember where, and I feel like I've said this 15 times and I won't say it again. I promise I'm done. But it's good practice. So I remember needing to do this for my transcripts and KCSE certificate. And it's just generally something you can do. Now, if you have lost your transcripts or your certificates, if it's for your KCSE, then if you want to replace them, you can go on the NEC portal and do the whole process. I've never done it. I'm just leading you to it, as I know that's the way to do it in case you've lost them. And I can imagine, you know, the good thing though is that if you've already applied for a first degree and you're done with a degree, no one's gonna really ask you for your KCSE papers. So if that's what you've lost and you're applying for postgraduate, then you may not have to be all too crazy about replacing them. But if you have lost your university certificates and you're trying to apply for a postgraduate degree, you have to get them replaced by your school. So sometimes people lose documents in, you know, difficult situations, like let's say a fire or they are stolen or something, in which case you need to report to the police. This will probably help you find them or something like that. That can take time, especially something like that happens, you need to report immediately. But then if you just lost them and you need to replace them, you're gonna need your ID, you're gonna need your admission number, which is the tricky part, because if you lost them long ago and you've forgotten your admission number or something like that, then that might be tricky. But you know, in some very, very difficult situations, even though you're applying later, you don't know your admission number, you should go back to your school and they should be able to help you. But I know with universities replacing these documents, they do charge you a processing fee. It can be anything from 5,000 to 15,000. So just keep that in mind in case you've lost documents. NEC portal for high school documents, back to your university, because they do have like a massive catalog of all their previous students for your university documents. Now, the next document that I want to talk about is your passport. Now, for most of us, you know, you apply for a passport somewhere along the way. Maybe the first time that you want to travel, that's a point to apply for a passport. So if you want to apply for a passport, then do exactly that. And if you want to renew your passport, now, for example, I remember, like for me, I needed to renew my passport because my passport was expiring this year, 2023. And I'm still gonna be in Kenya in 2023. I don't want to start having to replace my passport through the immigration services in the UK for, you know, things like that. So I just wanted to replace my passport to have it working, especially because service passports they'll give you 10 years, you know. So in any case, just as soon as it's about to expire, you're better off replacing it early. And of course, replacing is a shorter process than applying for the first time. The process of applying for a passport or replacing usually involves basic documents like your birth certificate. Sometimes you may need a true copy of your certificate. Remember the thing I said earlier. And when it comes to other than academic documents, if you ever been asked to take to do a true copy of the original, then you go to like your local chief in your area. They can do that for you and it's for free. I remember for the passport, at some point they ask that someone verifies and signs that you are the real person on the passport photo. I remember needing to do that with my chief, but then the annoying thing is when you eventually go to the passport guys, they don't really check that. But yeah, so you need your birth certificate, a passport photo, there's a fee that you pay, and all these details are in the portal. Let me get the exact portal: immigration.go.ke. Now, I just want to say as a note that I commend how fast this process has become over the years. I remember my dad pointing that out while I was replacing my passport. They've made it more efficient, a bit faster, and they have been able to coordinate also how you can pick your passport at the post office, which is also now, you know, they're really digitizing services. So I learned a lot of new things, like when you are replacing your passport, when it's ready, it will be sent to the post office, and then when you go to the post office, you need to make like an appointment there. You can do it like right there, but you know, if you know earlier, I mean the better. But immigration.go.ke is where you can get all details about your passport and even other documents should you ever need to deal with something you've lost, things like change of names and all that. The next document, which is very, very important, is the recommendation letters. Now, when you're applying for a postgraduate degree, most schools will require both an academic and a professional letter. Some will only ask you for an academic one, but like we said, we are applying for various options, and as much as possible, you want to have your documents together. This is something I should have actually said in the previous video, that all these documents, as you're getting them one by one, you should actually have a physical folder that you have bought where you will keep all these documents together. You're going to need them through the process. You want to have them easily accessible, but also have them all at once. What can make this application process cumbersome is when you're going through an application process and then realize, oh, I don't have this, and now you have to start going to look for it. Wastes a lot of time. So if you can do the initial collecting, putting together your documents at first, give yourself about a month to do that, then factoring also the waiting periods and everything, then now the next month you can sit and do your applications knowing I basically have everything I need. So with recommendation letters, of course, now when it comes to your academic recommendation letter, this should be your professor or your dean of studies. But as long as it's a professor in the school, and it would be better if it's a professor who is still in the school, and if you ask them and they're willing, then most likely they're gonna be in the school like at least by the time of your application. Even if they're not there much later, at least by the time of your application you have their recommendation letter. So it's basically a simple letter with the letterhead. The subject should be recommendation for Miss Laura Karwirwa Mugambi, and then a brief description of, I write to recommend Laura, who did she was a student in my class, excelled in this, that, the other. A recommendation letter should basically just point out your strengths, point out the things that stood out about you, point out why this person is recommending you, why they think you would be great for the course that you're applying to, and everything. Where you have a very, very specific target application, you can ask your recommender to sign several recommendation letters and have one that is very specific to that school that you're applying to. But recommendation letters are better off being a bit generic, rather than for them to say, I'm recommending her for Oxford Brookes University Masters in Public Health, because now I can't use that letter in another schools. So the more generic the better, because you never know really where you could use it next. But sometimes, depending on who you're dealing with, there's some who don't mind. You can ask them, can I do 5 different letters because I'm chasing these 5 different things? It may not really be necessary though. All I can say is maybe if there's one particular one you're chasing very hard, you can ask for that specific one and then now do another generic one. So a very important aspect of this recommendation letter, same goes for the professional letter. No, let me first say what the professional letter is. It's basically one from a former supervisor. It doesn't have to be an employee in the sense that this person actually employed you, like you had a job and everything. And it needs to be relevant to your application as best as possible. If you're applying for public health, a course, I keep using public health because it's my example. If you're applying for a public health course, then you want to get a professional recommendation from a professional in the field, So my example again is that I did work in media. I worked at Royal Media Services. I do have a recommendation letter from them, but it was not as relevant to this particular application because media, communication, and health, 2 different fields. You want as best as possible for your documents to be relevant to your application. So, but because I had done attachments and I had done placements, I had done my first attachment at Thika Level 5 Hospital, Red Cross, the second one, and then I did my internship with Kenya Nutritionist and Dietitians Institute. That's what I used. I used my supervisor for the 1-year internship that I had. She was the one I worked with longer. There was that friendly interaction with her. I knew she could write me a good one. So ideally, yes, there are those who will write you a letter from scratch. But keep in mind, these are busy people. They are, up and about. And most of them will not mind the whole concept of you drafting the letter and then sending it to them editing it, adding a letterhead. Now this is what I was talking about important things before I confuse myself. Adding a letterhead. They really need to add a letterhead. Now, like for the academic one, I needed the KU letterhead. For the professional one, I needed like Ministry of Health letterhead. So it brings out the whole aspect of validity. When someone looks at this letter, they're like, yes. So they need to add a letterhead, they need to add their contact details, and they need to sign it off now, like proper signing. Now the signing also, it's highly recommended that they sign a physical copy and then you go and pick from the office and then you scan it, and that's what you'll use to send, as compared to an e-signature, because yeah, I guess the same thing, just validity. It's more believable, like this person actually signed this paper, rather than an e-signature could have been even you doing it in your room just for the sake of giving a document because it's been said that you need it. So recommendation letters, is there anything I'm forgetting? That's pretty much it about the recommendation letter. As you've gotten from what I've been saying, is yes, there are those generic recommendation letters that you get from institutions once you're done working with them. But for this particular one, as much as possible, it needs to have that personal touch. That's not just Rural Media Services or Gashororo Health Center recommends, but I, Dr. So-and-so, who supervise Laura, recommends them. Like just that personal touch, that supervisor or that professor saying that they think you are great for what you're applying for, is a whole other level of recommendation. So it's ideally 1 page. You don't really need more than that. So as you're drafting your paragraphs in, they're about 3-4 paragraphs maximum. You just need to keep in mind that you need to make space for the letterhead, the subject head, the contact details and everything for it to literally fit just 1 page. But in any case, your recommender should be able to like go through what you've written and just amend or edit a few things. But of course, in what you're writing, because now that's an odd thing to do sometimes, you need to be as truthful and as realistic as possible. Just try and put yourself in this professor's shoes and what they could possibly say. Should anyone need more details on that, I'll be happy to furnish with more details, because I know it can be a bit vague just to say recommendation letter. Letters can say anything. And also I think if you're like me, it can be hard, really, much as it's a formal letter and you imagine that there's a template that you just simply follow. I remember I generally struggle with formal letters to an extent, because the formality aspect makes you be on toes about like, what exactly should I write? Am I making a mistake writing this, that, or the other? So I'll be happy to furnish with more details if anybody needs that. And then the last document that I want to talk about on this video is your bank statement. Now, this one is really, really important. You really need to do it right. I think if there's one document that can really mess you up, is that. I feel like they can even let you off the hook if, you know, the way they usually have whatever, and like cut off, like if you're applying for a postgraduate, you need to have had something like at least a 2nd class honors or something. I feel like they would even let you off the hook if you had like a lower, what is it, second upper, lower second, but you have everything else, especially something like the bank statement. I think, as in, I'm just trying to say that's how serious the bank statements are, because this whole idea of you not being able to financially hold yourself and you don't have a sponsor is very, like, they don't even joke with it. They don't even look at anything else after that. They're just like, no. Now, your school should furnish you with what you need, but these things are also in the website www.gov.uk. If anything, I would say make that website your friend if you're looking to come to the UK. It has loads of information, and I really love that about the UK. Loads of information about government services and just anything that you need to know to do with the government of UK. So you can find a lot of details there, but ideally the bank statement should reflect that you have an amount that covers the equivalent of your school fees in full, plus your living costs per month times the number of months you will be here. So the UK government has done a rough amount of how much one person needs to live in the UK per month. Yeah, they've done like a rough amount of, like, per month an individual in the UK will spend £1,000 a month on living costs. Yeah, so that's what they require. it doesn't matter if you are coming to the UK to live with family. It doesn't matter if you have your own personal plans. They want to see that, worst case, should anything happen, even if you have your own plans, you can live, you can eat, you're not going to be a burden to us. So do the calculation in terms of what has been guided by your school, because your school is the one that should support these checks to be done accurately. So they're the ones who will tell you on the portal. And I really hope that as I'm saying this, I'm careful, because I feel like I'm truly hoping that this is the case for every school, because this is what Oxford Brookes did does for us. It's very clearly stipulated in the portal, in the website, whether it's gifting portal, and it just furnishes you with all you need to know. And I really hope it's the case for all schools, that people don't go about these things blindly. Like, the school has a body that supports you to know what you need to do to apply for a visa. So it will have those details stipulated. How much is your course in total? And then what are the ideally living costs? Like I said, it's £100,027 roughly, anywhere other than London. In London, it's I think £1,300, 1,300 and something pounds. Multiply that by the number of months you will be in the UK. If it's like a 1 year full-time course, that's like 12 months. Of course, it's more than 12 months, but like at least they will ask you to just do 12 months or something. Or if it's like a shorter course, maybe it's 8 months, whatever it is. That sum, do it together, it will total to what? £30,000. Convert that to Kenya shillings. That is what your bank statement should show. Now, again, where it becomes tricky is some of them, I think most of them, will at least want to see that this money has been in the bank and there have been some transactions made over at least the last month. Some maybe 3 months. I don't really remember everything clearly. But it can be very tricky to just, I don't know, maybe if you can just borrow someone some 3M, ask them to wire it to your account for you to show a bank statement, and then you'll wire it back. That would be very tricky, because if they, a bank statement shows when this money came in and how long it's been there. And if it's just money that sat there like 2 days ago and you're sending me this bank statement now, then I'm like, then again, I don't really know that this is your money and that like you've been making it and you've been using it and everything. So if you can have a bank statement that shows a sense of some transactions that have been happening, and then the final balance totals to something that's equal to the amount they're asking for. Now, you should always top up that amount by another like 10 Gs as a Kenyan, because you have to factor in the exchange rates, because the day they're looking at your documents, they will judge it by the exchange rates of that day, and maybe that day it's higher than it was yesterday and you put the exact figure or something like that. So this is a very, very, very tricky part of the application. If you are using your parents' bank account like I was, you need, I remember in the portal, now this was a portal, I was required to upload my birth certificate and a letter of consent from my dad, and the school would give me templates of everything. So a letter of consent is just basically something that has been signed by my dad that says something like, I, Ben Mugambi, authorize my daughter Laura Mugambi to use these funds, quote the amount there, for her studies and upkeep in the UK, signed. Upload that, upload birth certificate to prove that indeed this is my dad, and then upload the statements from his bank account that says, okay, yeah, this is indeed a father paying for their daughter to come and study. So you need to keep that in mind as well if you're using someone else's account. Now, you're not really going to use someone else's account like someone random, like a friend, or because how do you prove that this person is actually paying this for you or something? So it needs to be like a private sponsor maybe, and I feel like a private sponsor would be a bit tougher to prove, or a parent or a guardian that you're able to simply prove with a simple document. birth certificate, for example, consent letter if they need it. So that's for bank statement. Again, I'm happy to furnish with more information because I know this is also a very tricky bit of the whole application process and the necessary documents for the application process. Now, again, with the bank statement, when you need a bank statement, you'll just derive it easily online, yeah? But for this nature, you might need to actually walk to your bank, speak to the manager at the bank, because you need a statement that has, like, I remember my school being very, very particular about letterheads. And the statement that my dad's bank would give didn't have the letterhead. And so at some point, we needed a letter now from the bank manager saying that, yes, this account actually exists, this account number, and it has this amount of money, and that amount of money is available when needed for use. Because again, the nature of the account matters. You can't give a statement from a locked savings account or from a circle. Let me not say things I'm not sure of, but I think so. I think there's some places, there's a nature of account that it needs to be an account that you can transact money. That money needs to be accessible for use anytime you want. You see, as much as you're coming as an international student and you've been allocated 20 hours of work should you want to work, the assumption here is that you're coming primarily as a student first. So whether you work or not, we want to see that you can take care of yourself. So you might need, back to what I was saying, you might need a letter from the bank. In this case, just the bank manager should support with that. It shouldn't be that difficult, but you need it stamped. Again, this validation of documents is very, very important. Things need to be stamped and signed. So this statement also needs to be stamped and signed, and that's why you're most likely gonna need to walk into your bank account to have that done for you. So generally, that's it for this video. We've talked about the academic transcripts and certificate, the recommendation letters, the bank statements, and I've forgotten the other one, but they were for passport. It was a passport. And this brings me to the end of the video. Remember, like I said, if you're applying, please just keep your eye open to really how the school's response rate is. That's not to say that there are some schools that are bad, but you want to go for what's best. Right? At the end of the day, you want to go for what's best, because how they respond, how soon they respond, how much support they give you. Because you see, the thing is, and this is something that I think is very important to say, when you're applying to come to the UK, there's an inferiority complex that can come over you that make you feel like you really need to be compliant and obedient and like, you know, cower to this whole process because you're the one who really needs to go to the UK. They need you as well, and you're going to be paying an arm and a leg to come to their school, so you deserve to be treated and given like quality services. You need to be able to email them and they respond as soon as possible. You need to be able to call them if you really need to, though calling is very expensive from Kenya, so email should work. So if you're having troubles reaching out to a school that you've applied to, then that might be a sign for you to just keep that to the back of the list and try and focus on the ones that are keeping you up to date and everything. If applications take long, you can always follow up with an email. Like I said, it usually takes 2 weeks to a month. Longer than a month, I dare say, if you follow up with an email and they do not get back, then again, that should tell you what you need to know. Because I remember my friend telling me this, and now that I'm here dealing with Oxford Brookes University communication daily, I can see why it stood out. Is because the promptness, the quality of feedback and the quality of support you get is what we will continue with while you are in the course. Like right now, if you need to see a student support coordinator in Brookes, it's an easy email or call and you get feedback and you book appointments and So yeah, think about that as well. So next week we talk about more important documents for your application process. So keep it here, send this to someone who needs it, keep the conversations alive in the comment section. Let's learn together, and thank you so much for watching.